My name is Chiarito, and today I will be talking to you about qualitative and quantitative assessments, as well as their position and influence in education and curriculum development. As you can see, we have an overview of today's lesson. First, I will offer up some burning questions that I found myself considering while researching this topic. Then I will provide you with the basic definitions as well as the main differences of qualitative and quantitative assessments. After, we will discuss the influence these assessments have on curriculum, education, and teaching, as well as how they help develop these. Lastly, we will touch on how to choose an assessment based on subject before wrapping up our lesson and our conclusion. We have our burning questions. I found myself asking, why are quantitative and qualitative assessments important to education and curriculum? I also asked, how can qualitative and quantitative assessments influence education and curriculum? For the duration of this presentation, I would like you to keep into consideration these questions. To start, what are they? What exactly are qualitative and quantitative assessments? Qualitative and quantitative assessments are data gathering tools that we as educators use. These assessments are not only used by our teachers in the classroom, but also by the principals of our schools, as well as the school board, district, and state. Qualitative and quantitative assessments come in both formal and informal measurements and formats. Formal measurements are normally referred to as major tests that provide data to a higher level of administration, which is then used to determine the overall growth and success of students. Informal measurements are normally data points a teacher collects as reference to determine where a student may be struggling in order to provide them with extra help and support. One important fact we must remember as educators is that qualitative and quantitative assessments provide us with usable data points throughout the year to guide our instruction, as well as offer up future curriculum changes that may be brought to light. These data points are easily accessible as they are created year-round in all classrooms across the globe. There's also easy access in our school district to obtain previous testing scores of our students. Now that we know what exactly are qualitative and quantitative assessments, we will discuss what the difference is. It can be easy to confuse the two. We will break down what each one specifically focuses on. To start, qualitative assessments are more focused and geared toward a more in-depth response or critical thinking aspect of the students. Qualitative assessments focus on each individual aspect and criteria of a response provided by the student in order to determine if they fully understand the material, as well as determining if they can successfully execute or recreate this material in response later on. An example of a qualitative assessment would be open-ended questions for reading. Another example of a qualitative assessment would be a rubric in regards to writing a paper or solving a complex problem. That way, the student knows exactly what they are expected to do and the grading criteria is there. On the other hand, we have quantitative assessments, which are more number-focused and tend to be quick data-driven points. Quantitative assessments do not have a specific criteria or rubric where a student can gain partial credit or points towards their grade. The assessment is either a correct-incorrect assessment, like multiple choice or true-false test, or the assessment is offered to students as a Likert scale assessment, which is based on opinion rather than fact. There is no extra focus put onto the student understanding and reciprocation of information that they have learned compared to a qualitative assessment. Since the two assessments seem drastically different, how exactly can they influence education? Qualitative and quantitative assessments have an important impact and influence on curriculum because the data collected shows and depicts what is working well and what is working poorly in the current curriculum design. When analyzing the data from these assessments, it is made clear what standards are being driven home and which ones may no longer be as important, as well as in what order the standards are taught and discussed. When looking at teaching, however, the data results from these assessments can allow teachers to change their methods of teaching or tweak the methods if a complete change isn't needed. In order to successfully teach the material to the students, it is crucial that teachers have this opportunity. While the data collected from quantitative and qualitative assessments focus on how well the material is being taught and learned, it can also allow for further insight for teachers. This is in regards to manipulatives and assignments that they may need to adjust or totally revamp in order for their students to successfully understand the material. As for testing, both on the curriculum and teaching side, research conducted by the Rowe showed that allowing alternative methods to traditional quantitative assessments allowed for greater success in student academic careers. Further research conducted by Serrano, along with another study completed by Parfit and Shane, showed that qualitative testing allowed for teachers to see directly where their students were hitting mark standards and their overall knowledge of the subject as a whole. This allowed their students to succeed and greatly go beyond the standard. My next question for you is, how can these assessments be developed? Or how can they develop other aspects of education? Quantitative and quantitative assessments can be developed to match student needs, or they can be developed to provide each student with ample opportunities to succeed or achieve higher grades in order to show their knowledge of the material being taught. On the other side of the educational spectrum, the data results from these assessments can change the standards put in and taken from the curriculum for the following year, as well as the order of which the material is taught, as discussed on the previous slide. So how exactly should we choose which assessment should we use and when to use it? Based on the research that I have found, qualitative assessments are encouraged and should be used as frequently as possible. This allows students to demonstrate their knowledge of the material. Most qualitative assessments are used in writing, reading, and grammar, but can also be found in science, history, and mathematics. Overall, it is important to understand the difference in qualitative and quantitative assessments. While qualitative assessments focus on the quality and in-depth understanding of the information, quantitative data shows the understanding of material on a more surface level, correct manner. I feel it is imperative to understand how these assessments can influence the lessons in the classroom, as both are important in education. While research and text shows that qualitative assessments are more successful at grasping a wider picture of the student's knowledge, quantitative can be used as a quick snapshot into the student's understanding to determine where they may need immediate attention. Now that you have a better understanding of the importance, impact, and difference of qualitative and quantitative assessments in education, which format of assessments do you find yourself using the most? Do you feel it is effective in showing in how well your students are doing? What about how well you're teaching? Please take these questions into consideration and share your thoughts below.